Welcome to the Can't Stop the Growth podcast, the home service podcast dedicated to personal and leadership development. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and if you're ready to grow as a leader, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. Today is a very special episode for a number of reasons. This is our 100th episode. And so while I am the one that is always talking most of the time, my kind of partner in crime, Jared, who has been with the podcast since we started this thing in the back of our old warehouse back in 2018, I believe. November of 18, I think, was our very first episode, and he and I have been working, him probably more so than me, putting it together, making it look good, and making sure everything sounds good, and then pushing it out to the public. So without any further ado, would like to introduce the man behind the camera and the microphone, Jared. Welcome to the podcast, Jared.
Thanks, Chad. I've been to all of them, but I'm excited to, I guess, be on for the first time. I'm really excited about this one. It's been a bit of time in the works, and now we get to celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely, and celebrate we will. And kind of in traditional, I've heard this on a couple of other podcasts. So what Jared and I are going to do today is really kind of look back at the last, I guess it would be 99 episodes with some of the content that I've presented by myself, and then others where more recently we've had on great guests who have shared their perspective on leadership and leading and all of that stuff. So Jared has kind of combed through the episodes and pulled out things that he found got a lot of engagement or, just said something interesting that we can kind of expound on, especially those ones from very early on where things may have changed. I know he has one question here about my morning routine, but and when I started the podcast, I would have had a 3-month-old at the time, and now I've got 2 of them running around. So that has definitely changed. But should be a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy. Hopefully it refreshes some things that you may have heard in the past that, especially as we kick off kind of a new year here, you can, maybe implement and get stronger as it relates to your leadership, both personally and professionally. So with that, I'll kick it back over to Jared and let him begin kind of the reminiscing. Let the reminiscing begin.
Yes, let the reminiscing begin. Absolutely. I'm super excited to see how kind of things have evolved, given that I think, probably I might be one of the only people who has been to, I would like to say all, but I know I missed a couple, but I think I've been to most.
Yeah.
So the very first episode, as you kind of teased, is about establishing a routine, and that was the very first, I think, recording that we did, as well as the first episode that was ever posted. So episode 1, entitled Establishing a Routine. I have a clip from it. I think this is probably one of the biggest talking points for the people who were there. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that clip, and then we'll talk about it.
And so my alarm clock goes off at 3 a.m. So I wake up at 3. There again, whatever I tell you, you don't have to do. I will vouch for. I am extremely, extremely aggressive when it comes to this because this is what allows me to perform during the day, and that's what works for me. But again, other people may not need as much time. You may not be a morning person. Whatever it is, make it work for you.
Alrighty, so I don't know if, depending upon how loud you're listening to this, if you listen closely, you can hear an audible exclamation when you first reveal what your wake-up time is. And I know that kind of reaction was something that resonated with me being there, hearing that live for the first time. And I think that reaction from people is why the episode is so highly listened to. It's something that is very clearly, I think, core to kind of who you are as a person and as a leader, as well as something that is very challenging to hear. And so early in the episode, you're talking about feeling that you need to start your day in a place where there's minimal distraction. And that's kind of how the idea of getting up so early kind of had started. So what is your current routine, and how has your routine evolved since like 2018 when we started this?
Yeah, so routine still starts at the same time. I think it's important, and these are probably kind of more how I've evolved, or how I kind of look at waking up early, is I look at it from two fronts. One, we talk a lot on the podcast about leading yourself and about understanding that in order to lead others, you have to first lead yourself. And I really look at this as somewhat symbolic, and then I'll jump into kind of the actual like why and what I get done during that helps me do that. But from a lead yourself perspective, I look at it from, if I'm going to lead this company, if I'm going to lead others, like being the first one up and getting the day started and kind of setting the tone is something that I'm in charge of. And I'm always looking for things in my life, whether that be kind of past experience or what have you, that I can control. And I know that there's better leaders out there than me, and people who, know how to have great conversations and inspire people and all that. But like, the one thing I can control is when I get up, and then what I do with my time. And so that's the other piece of the puzzle that has remained constant for me, is I always get up early. I've incorporated drinking a glass of water. So if you're not a morning person, having a glass of water right by your bedside will wake you up pretty quickly.
I can say personally, having tried that, it does work.
Yeah.
Especially if it's cold, because it kind of fires up your metabolism to make you...
You got it. So that has helped. It is a little bit trickier, as I mentioned in the outset. I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 6-month-old, so they tend to, it's not always consistent. However, where I find value in what they do and what they throw at me is somewhat a representation of leadership. It's how committed am I to being a leader. If I look at my goal sheet for this year, one of those goals is to be a better leader at home. Well, if I get frustrated because one of my kids interrupts my morning routine, like they did this morning, I can either get upset about it, or I can understand that, hey, I get to go feed my son, or I get to spend time with my daughter, or whatever it is. I've spent many mornings reading on one end of the couch while my daughter sleeps on the other end because she got up about the same time, or whatever it may be. And all of those are times to just understand that leadership is one that you can't predict everything. You can try to control the things you can control. But if someone or something is thrown into the mix, then that's okay. And it's about how we respond to that. And if we look at that as some sort of obstacle, or we look at it as an opportunity. And I think that's one of the biggest things as it relates to leadership. Again, I always, as far as the morning routine goes, I try to have incorporated exercise in there over the years. Currently I'm doing that at lunch, which has been really good. I've got a place right down the street from the office. And then, a breakfast. Breakfast is key for me. I like to get some fruit, some eggs, some sauce. I have basically the same thing. I'm super boring when it comes to eating. I can eat the same thing every morning. And so I have all my stuff laid out, ready to go. So it's super simple. And then, obviously a big part of my morning routine now is getting the kids ready and off to school. So I drop them off, or I get to drop them off every morning at school, which is a lot of fun. I usually have a good conversation with my daughter, and based on what's going on. And then, my son, obviously 6 months old, so not a lot of talking yet, but I'm sure we'll get there. So.
Absolutely. So I think that some of what you said really transitions well into the next clip, which is from a more recent episode 56, entitled Emotional Intelligence. And I know recently we've actually been revisiting that. But let's take a look at this clip, and we will go into our next talking point.
I will share a small win for myself personally. So this is a quality of mine that I really get behind. Like, especially when people are pushing back on me, like, God damn, like, dude, calm down. Like, really optimistic about this whole thing. So I kind of push back. It kind of energizes me. And so there is no bigger pusher-backer
than my lovely wife. And she pushed back on me like there was no tomorrow. She's like, would you shut up? This isn't good. Well, you got to look at the positive side of things. I mean, it could be worse. And she absolutely despises me for that. I think she's almost hit me a couple times. However, I did get a small victory. In about a month ago, she did say that outlook is starting to help her a little bit. So, some people, it takes a while. It'll be 4 years of marriage coming up here in next week. Yeah, next week. Next Thursday. And, but so it took 4 years, to break through that. A little less, but, 4 years to break through that. And that's okay. And so I'm probably not a great leader at home when I, kind of egg her on with being overly optimistic. So that's probably a character flaw of mine, but it's fun. So, for the short time. But being optimistic, I think, is extremely critical because there is always a solution. There's always a solution, regardless of how bad it's going, regardless of how terrible it is, regardless of how many no's we've heard out in the field, there is always a solution. But we won't find that solution until you take responsibility for your outcome.
And so I feel that you definitely kind of were hinting at this earlier with how you were talking about, getting to get your kids ready, getting to take them to school, and, how you've embraced their, influence in your morning routine. So in this clip, you're talking about being positive or choosing to be positive, even in a situation that could be viewed as negative. So how has this ability, do you feel, affected your leadership over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I think, and I point this out in a number of the episodes about how, leading at home can sometimes be the most challenging. You've got kids, you've got a spouse, you've got all of these things that, just given the nature of the relationship, make it more difficult to be that leader. And that's why literally over the past couple of years, I mentioned earlier, I put that down as a goal, is to be a better leader at home. I feel like sometimes in the work setting, it's like the environment kind of aids in, okay, well, I need to be a leader. I need to do this, but at home, it makes it more difficult. And I would say over the years, obviously kids growing up, my daughter's getting a little bit older, that leadership can be tougher because they have a mind of their own. And I think that it's important to remember that whether it's leading at home or leading in the workplace, is that everyone reacts a different way. Everybody has a different perspective on things based on their past or things that they've went through. And I think it's just extremely important to understand that it's your job as the leader to bend. And I kind of said it there at the end of the clip as it relates to my wife, of kind of leaning into other people's personality, leaning into others' way of thinking as the leader. It's not about you. It's not about how you digest information. It's not about how you learn. It's about how they learn. And understanding that it's your responsibility to do that. It's not your responsibility to tell everybody what to do and then for them to fall in line. And if they don't, well then, they need to find some place else to work. That is a very lonely path to not leading anyone, because no one is exactly alike. Jared, you're gonna learn something way different than I am, and that's perfectly fine. We're all okay in learning a different way, or liking different things, or taking something from a situation and pulling out something completely different. And that's okay, because ultimately that's what gets us to the best solution, is a bunch of different perspectives.
Absolutely. And I think that that's something that has really been very clearly at the heart of Peterman. It's been one of the things that I've always loved about being here. Speaking of Peterman, this next clip is, as we've kind of established some of your personal ways that you lead yourself, the way that you try and are working on leading at home, now we're going to talk a little bit about Peterman itself, or I guess kind of the way you've chosen to take the company. This is a clip from episode 85, I think. Yes, it looks like it. This is the most recent episode in our list, and it's called Working Your Model. This is an interview with Aaron Gaynor. So let's take a listen to that clip.
Well, I think one thing is being able to just stay the course, right, with this stuff. There's always distractions. People come with, hey, there's this multi-million-dollar project, there's this, there's that, all these things. People come, even your own team come, and be able to just say no. Say no. I just had to say no to our general manager at one of our newer locations. He wanted to brought some stuff about some restoration company contract, and the guy had was working. I literally just said no. Like, no. He said, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I go, no. It sounds good on paper until you have to do it. So being able to say no to that other business, which is hard because people look at you because there's real money. There is money there, right? It's just, it interferes with the actual model that you're trying to do, right? I've seen this happen, Chad, you've probably seen it and other people have. As soon as you pick up some account and everybody believes it's some multi-million-dollar account, everybody drops everything for everybody else and takes all their focus onto that account, which then destroys the model of focusing on one customer at a time every day and building a long-term relationship with the community you serve, not with one contractor that you work for. And I've seen that. And I think that's been probably one of the biggest things for me was to, once I flipped that switch and made that decision, to stay that course.
So, obviously talking about, in this episode, transitioning from commercial more to residential, and I feel like Aaron kind of lays out this model beautifully. That's his model, but it's also the model that we've been using here at Peterman, taking the very best care of one customer at a time and building hopefully a lifelong relationship with them. Given that that transition happened more so, I feel like, somewhat recently, as I know even when I started, there was still some commercial work being done, and I feel like we've almost completely phased that out. Why did you want to take the company in that direction?
Yeah, so love Aaron. Appreciate him being on the podcast, and I think he does a great job of kind of illustrating why it's so important to have that laser focus. And for us, my dad started the company, and we did every kind of work you could possibly do. I mean, you called and you wanted something, by God, we were going to find a solution for you. I mean, I remember back early on when we were putting furnaces in barns and all kind. We put one in the 4-H barn. I was like, how is this thing even going to work? And you just do what you got to do to make money and keep going. And so I think if you're a smaller company, Aaron does not run anywhere near a small company, but there was probably one day when he did that stuff. And what he has learned and what we have learned is that as you grow, it's okay to say no. And while it's hard because there is money there, what you need to be crystal clear on is that model. And what you talked about is, serving one customer at a time, building that relationship. It's very difficult to do when you have different customers wanting different things. Most homeowners want something very similar. They may have a different problem, but they want this, you can deliver the same thing to them. Whereas I can't deliver that to a restoration company. I can't deliver that to a commercial client. It's different. And what it does, and what I've learned, is it provides confusion for the team. It's like, hey, go take care of Sally homeowner, and then, oh, by the way, go take care of this restaurant. Like, it's two different experiences. And then what you'll find is when that restaurant business is a very small piece of the business, it becomes very difficult to be good at it because your technicians out in the field, they only see it so often. It's been one of our things where we've gotten rid of all commercial work, we've gotten rid of boilers, we've gotten rid of all of these things that we only see so often. And it's very difficult to hold a technician accountable for knowing how to work on this piece of equipment and then go into a home and work on what they see 90% of the time. So having that laser focus is key. I will tell you, when we were small, like I said, we went after everything and anything, and I think that that's okay, but it's also good to know what's your end game. Like, where do you want to get to? And then it becomes easier to strip away those things that are, kind of messing with that model.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes so much sense. Just really honing in on where you want to go, what you want to do in life, in business, is always going to be something that having that identity, having that something to hold on to is going to really impact how you attack the day, I suppose. So this next clip is from episode 55, 7 Ways to Lead Yourself. And if I remember correctly, this predated our company values.
Yes,
And
yeah, it did.
is kind of where I expect one of the values, I know you mentioned your favorite value, lead yourself, came from. Obviously, talking about ways that you can be a leader no matter where you are by leading yourself first. And I can say that this was one of the more discomforting episodes for me, given that this was kind of the emergence of one of the major concepts of the show. And so we'll listen to the clip and you'll kind of learn why.
What would it look like if on those days that you didn't feel like it, you did it anyway? Just on those days. So there's plenty of days when you feel like doing it, gusto, you're pumped up, you're ready to go, charged up, things are going good, things are falling in place. It's easy to be disciplined on those days. Everything's rolling. It's good. But we all wake up on the wrong side of the bed. It's like, this is going to be rough. Or the alarm doesn't go off. Or you're out of eggs. Or whatever. What if on those days you made the conscious decision to do what you needed to do? Just on those ones, how much better could you get? Just pushing through on those days. Why is it so difficult to do on those days especially? Because discipline, as I've said before, is a willingness to be uncomfortable. If you are growing, you are extremely uncomfortable. Are you willing to be uncomfortable? Because if you are, then you've taken the first step. Now it takes discipline to be uncomfortable every day. Because that's where the growth is found. It's found in being uncomfortable. It's found in stepping outside your box of something you would normally do, and we grow in that discomfort. We talk about this a lot of the times with, as I see Steve writing something down, hopefully sharing it with the sales team, discipline. We see this a lot where you get told no a lot of times. No. And then we get away from the things that were working because we think that that's not working. When really we just need to look back on the ones that said no to us and understand what we didn't do. What were those little things that we weren't disciplined with? Because oftentimes when we find a failure, it's because we've allowed ourselves to get comfortable with the wrong way of doing things. So as you work towards your goals, what do you need to be disciplined about? What's comfortable? What feels comfortable? Because if you live in discomfort for long enough, guess what? It becomes comfortable.
So I feel the show has a few taglines that kind of encompass its spirit, and one of them is definitely in this clip. Grow comfortable with discomfort, or grow comfortable being uncomfortable. So in this episode, I believe it's the first time that this concept emerged, and I know it's shaped many episodes since. If you've listened to the show, you've probably heard it at least one time. Grow comfortable with being uncomfortable. So tell me about how embracing discomfort has shaped you as a leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that discomfort is understanding that it's just something that, oftentimes you need to do, but you don't want to do it. So the easiest example is like working out. Like, no one wants to go run a couple miles. It's uncomfortable. It's not great. There are some people that say they enjoy running. I feel like they enjoy something that running gives them, not the actual running. But I digress. So the concept of being uncomfortable is really looking for those things that are going to challenge you to do something, like waking up early. Well, I know that, and I've told this story many times, I don't want to get up. My bed's comfortable. I bought it that way. It's great. I love the thing. I want to sleep. I want to turn over and go back to bed because that's what happens in the morning. Like, the only time that you're going to wake up and just be rip-roaring, like maybe if you're going on vacation, that's a good one. All right, you come up and, you could have got 2 hours of sleep the night before, but you're excited. And so understanding that in that discomfort is where you're going to grow. That's where growth happens. And so if you find yourself, even as a technician or a comfort advisor or whatever it is, or a plumber, and you're continuing to go out there and do the same thing over and over and over again, and then find yourself complaining about the results that you're getting, and it's so easy to blame the customer, to blame everything external. But the key in discomfort is taking responsibility and understanding that I am responsible for my growth and that I control my outcome. And when you do that, what we see is a tremendous amount of growth because people feel that push, and you start to understand that discomfort immediately becomes comfort when you find that you're growing. And there is a lot of things, and maybe that's the thing that people enjoy about running, is they know that their cardiovascular system is improving, or their endurance, or whatever it may be. And so to me, it's writing those things down that you'll be uncomfortable with. Hey, what's our goal in this podcast? It's to get 250 reviews for the podcast this year. Well, last time I checked, we're at 12. So we're a long way off. Well, it's going to take us probably getting a little bit uncomfortable to hit that goal. Like we added the outro. We are asking people for reviews. Well, that's step one. Well, okay, we've done a couple episodes with that and we've gained a couple of reviews, but not enough to get us to 250. So we're going to probably have to do some other things. We're going to probably have to push it out on more channels. We're going to probably have to ask our staff to leave reviews. Like we're going to have to do things that we otherwise wouldn't have because that goal is forcing us to act a different way. And so to me, it's looking for those opportunities to where you can challenge yourself, and it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's okay. That's where you're going to grow.
And I can say something that I have personally, because I do remember sitting there this day on that recording and hearing that for the first time and understanding it and not liking what I was hearing.
Yeah.
If I'm being perfectly honest, I did not want to embrace this as a concept. But one thing that I can share from my own personal, I suppose, grappling with this is comfort in you, comfort, if you will, and it's almost going to sound discomforting at first, is that, let's face it, life is going to happen to you. Discomfort's coming. And there's a kind of an empowerment of choosing it. There's an empowerment of kind of the enemy that you choose, if you will, and going for something that is uncomfortable and picking it, because then you have some buy-in, then you have, all right, this is my choice and I'm going to make the best of it. Whereas if you just let it happen to you, because discomfort's coming, whether you choose it or not, if you choose it, you at least are embracing it and turning it to your benefit instead of just letting it happen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point of, taking responsibility for your life, not being a kind of innocent bystander of, well, all this stuff's just happening to me. Well, is it? Or, can you find the best of it? Yeah, life's going to throw you some pretty crappy stuff here, there, and, along the path, but it's more so how you deal with it. As opposed to making up excuses or blaming somebody else for what's going on.
So in this next clip, we're actually doing a two-part clip for this one because they go hand in hand. This is from episode 2, one called, very simply, Leadership. If you look through the naming scheme over the years, I've definitely become more specific and gotten a little more creative with the name. And it's also going to be tied in with episode 88, and that's an interview with Tom Mascari. And as you listen, you'll see exactly why I tied these two things together, because the concept is the same across them, and it's one of the things that I feel has been a big concept for the show overall, especially since, being there at the beginning and then being there recently as well.
The big concept of leadership that I am a firm believer in is a term that many of you have probably heard, is servant leadership. And that goes with kind of the concept of the responsibility is yours as the leader. And that responsibility is making sure that guy fills out the form right, making sure this guy installs that thing right. Whatever it is making sure that you're there to support the actions of those you're leading. And when you can understand that you're not there to just direct orders at them, and you're there to support them, then you start getting results.
The leadership style I adopted early on, and it's become a little bit more mainstream in the last few decades or so, is the style called servant leadership, which is taking your team, identifying their needs, and figuring out, after you've cast a vision, after you put the right metrics in place for the individual managers you're working with, how do I come behind you and support you? How do I guide you? How do I help you succeed? And I've not always experienced that in the past with places I've been. A lot of places are sink or swim. Here's your role, figure it out, go ahead and conquer it. Otherwise, we'll find somebody who can. And I've always tried to be the type of leader, and hopefully have been to some degree, where my team feels supported, that I'm on their side, and I'm here to help them grow and succeed. And I think at the end of the day, leaders and managers, that's really our role. It's how we build people and help them be successful.
Okay, so you and Tom saying very similar things there, of course. And I think that, as I mentioned, this was an overarching kind of concept that I think started to shape the show early on. And it was one of the first things that I think really resonated with me. I think that, if I remember correctly, this concept was introduced within the same kind of series that the, routine one was introduced, where, you get up at 3, and then also talked about the servant leadership concept. And between the two, this one definitely resonated with me more, I think. Not a morning person myself. But, servant leadership, why do you think this has become such a game-changing view of leadership, given its growing popularity? It's obviously resonating with a lot of people. What about it attracted you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I've talked about this before, is just the circumstance with which I got into this business. When I got into this business, I had still don't really, a whole lot of idea about the technical side of things. And so what I knew coming in, even though I wasn't the primary leader when I first started 10 years ago, I knew that I needed all of the people that we had on our team. I needed the technicians, the installers, the guys who knew all about this stuff, Christy in our office, who knew about all the accounting and how to answer the phone and how everything's supposed to be, handled and all of this stuff. Like, I needed all of these people. And so for me, I think the circumstance, and then also the things that I sought out from a learning perspective, whether it be books or podcast or what have you, really kind of, I was kind of, what do they say, kind of getting that education by reading the book and then going and seeing it on a daily basis of like, ooh, I need these people. Like, how can I help them? Because I can't tell them what to do because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I mean, that was kind of the thing. So like for me, I feel very blessed to be in that situation where I feel like learning may have been easier. Where I think in our industry it gets tough and we have an obligation to break it is, a lot of these businesses are started, this business, in fact, started by a former technician. Well, it's very easy when you know how to fix that furnace to just tell somebody what to do, rather than allowing them to figure out and being there to provide support and that, that servant leadership of what things can I do to help you be really good at what you are. And so, where we see it most and where we have, the most work to do is people who, for lack of a better term, have experienced a bad example of this. They've experienced the manager who just orders them around and micromanages them and tells them what to do and yells at them if they don't do it right and all of these things. And then we want to elevate that particular person who's experienced that into a management role, and we're like, oh my God, like they don't get it. Well, how are they supposed to, right? I mean, they've never seen it in action. We can tell them it all they want, but all they've ever seen with who they've equated as their manager is a bad example. And so where we feel our real servant leadership comes in is in the training and preparation we do with our people. And that may be for someone who is 4 years out from being a manager, or it may be someone who's 6 months out from being a manager. Whatever that is, we feel it's our obligation as an organization to prepare these people to take on that challenge so that they can be successful when it is their time to lead. And that all starts with, as you pointed out, leading yourself. And so what we try to do is teach people how to lead themselves first, how to seek information, how to find podcasts and read books and articles and all of these things that are going to help them kind of set the stage for success in the future.
Absolutely. And I know that I've definitely experienced that being here. The sense of empowerment that you get from management here, or even more into servant leadership, there's probably not a single manager that I have had the pleasure of interacting with who, it doesn't matter what their title is, it does not matter what they do within the company, it's always, well, how can I help? Is there anything I can do? And that comes from everybody, the people who work in the warehouse, other office staff, the technicians, everyone has always been so very warm and generous with their time and willingness to kind of come alongside you in wherever you're doing and help however they can. All right, so this next clip is from episode 84, Invest in People, an interview with John Conway. And, as we've talked in a couple of the other things, investing in people is one of the big things that we like to do. So let's go ahead and hear what John has to say, and then we can discuss that a little bit.
What separates the best from the rest? Well, the best value people. And the ones who value people, and valuing people means that you're willing to invest in people, and it means that you're willing to spend money on people, and it means that you're not trying to save money. An example of investing in people is your university at Peterman. You're investing in people. There is not only are you giving people jobs and are you being able to grow your business with it, but you're also investing a substantial amount of money in people. And so one of the things that separated the best from the rest was someone who valued people, was willing to invest in people, and wasn't trying to save money.
So for those who didn't listen to the episode or are unaware, John was a business coach for us for quite a while. I think 4 years or so, maybe 5. And so he's obviously a longtime mentor of you and of the company. I know a lot of the leadership in the company as well. So what were some of the things, I guess, you heard during that time being mentored by him? Were these things that came up even then? And how do you feel that you've tried to embody the concept of investing in others?
Yeah, so kind of to answer both parts of the question. So John, obviously, when we joined Nexstar in 2015, he was assigned our coach. Little did we know the impact that he would have on our business. And so our business has grown substantially over the last 6 years plus. And, a lot of that was to his credit. And, the one thing that I love John for is he was never afraid to, point out something, and it was true servant leadership. Hey, that doesn't look good. Not fix it, but hey, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Hey, let's look into this. Why don't you send me over this report next month? Whatever it was always, how can I help? And he provided that push, which was good, but it was also, hey, where can I help out? Even though he wasn't in our building, he was helping. And the one thing that, John created that relationship where we never wanted to let him down. And I feel like that's something that, is still uttered in the building, even though John's not our coach. It's like, well, if John was watching, like, well, what would we need to do? Like, what would we want to do? And so I'm very grateful for that relationship. I still talk to him here and there, and actually last year he came in and did a training for our guys, and just really grateful for our relationship, and excited about what the future holds for that as well. As it relates to investing in people, this is something that I think has really contributed to our growth. We just had our holiday party a couple of days ago now, in filming this and recording this, is the main theme of it was not grow bigger, grow better. And if we can each grow better, we're going to create a bigger and a better company, which is, sustainable and scalable. So that's exciting. And I think that we just understand and have come to understand through the great people that we have that are willing to invest in themselves. Because, what is the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? And so we work very hard to make sure that path to the water is extremely clear by all the resources that we want to offer up, Top Tech Academy, all of these things. But it is truly our people who we find and who connect with our culture that want to use those resources. I was just down at the school this morning, and we've got people full. It's hustling and bustling at 7 a.m. with people learning and getting better, and what's training today, and how can we make this better, and all of these things that they have really just taken the lead on, and it is just so fun to watch. I would rather watch people get better every day than to sell another job or whatever it may be, because at the end of the day, all of that stuff takes care of itself. Where the true growth comes and where the true impact comes is watching people get better.
Absolutely. Something that's always very exciting to see is when you look, I guess, in a lot of ways in what we're doing now, looking back on where we were or where that individual was and where they are now, and being able to celebrate all the victories along the way, all the life lessons that you've learned, is always something that is its own reward. More than anything else, seeing that progress is always so exciting. So this next clip is from an episode we did with Justin Carroll, entitled The Road to Leadership, an interview with Justin Carroll. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he has to say.
One thing that's very impactful, I think, for myself and all the other leaders in the organization is we do have a leadership training that we do once a week, every week. It's Thursday mornings, and anyone in the entire company is invited to attend that. And I also tell people, you don't have to want to necessarily be in a leadership position in order to attend this, because I believe that being a great leader is pretty much the same thing as being a great human being. They're pretty much one and the same. And so anyone who just wants to grow as a human, I strongly encourage them to attend this leadership training. So with a little over 100 people in the company, I think we've got roughly about 30 people that attend that optional leadership training. So we've got about 30% participation, which I think is good. And that's just as good for me as it is everyone else. I mean, we tend to get better at the things that we talk about on a regular basis, right? And the conversations we have in there, they're very fluid. We just go with the flow. Anything you want to bring up, any questions you want to ask, it's just very open. And I do believe I continue to grow as a leader through those conversations. And also, we're helping to achieve our mission through this as well. I mean, our mission as a company is to enhance the lives of the families that we impact. So we're constantly talking about enhancing lives. And I believe this is one of the many things that we do. in order to accomplish that end result. I think that leadership training is massively impactful for everybody who participates.
So this obviously, I think, sounds a little bit familiar as a concept to what you do here at Peterman, because Justin talks about, his company's voluntary leadership trainings, and obviously, got to be near and dear to your heart as well. For those who don't know, before the podcast became the podcast, it was called Peterman Future Leaders, and it was primarily for employees to come and learn about leadership in business, much like Justin was talking about with his company. So what about those initial meetings led you toward opening it up to essentially anyone and everyone who wants to listen, taking it from those voluntary meetings and turning it into a podcast?
Yeah, so I think Justin spells out kind of the purpose of it very, very nicely when he says enhance lives. And so while typically on a day we're going to fix people's heat, repair a leak, fix an electrical outlet, I think the bigger purpose is enhancing lives, and how do we do that? And he said one thing that really resonates with me is that leadership and being a good human are one and the same. And this is something I preach somewhat with the concept of lead yourself, is that we are all leaders. And, I gave a talk a couple of weeks ago to our people in a very similar setting as to what Justin was talking about, that we do every other week here on Fridays. And the one thing I said was, like, if you want to advance at this company, like if you want to see growth in your career, like you really just need to like show up and be a good person and want to help somebody. Because at the end of the day, leadership is just about helping somebody. And if you want your career to go faster, help more people. And that's what it's all about. And so I think that the podcast was really like, how can we be kind of that shining star or that beacon? And not that we need any credit for it, but like, how can we just like put out the content of like maybe like changing our industry, maybe like putting it out there, or maybe changing other industries. I mean, I talk to people all the time who aren't in the trades but get value out of this, and that's the hope. It's not like I'm saying anything earth-shattering, but it's stuff that I read or stuff that I come across that I want to share with people, because hopefully that will help. And it may or may not. Heck, this is 100 episodes, and, there may be people out there that are like, yeah, I was like, okay, like I didn't really get, and that's okay too, but maybe episode 120 or 170 or 210 gets their attention. And that's all we're after. And I think that understanding that as a leader, it's your job to push out there what you know, and the fact that you're excited about helping people. And I know here at Peterman, we are very excited about helping people and seeing people grow and seeing people, just excel at what they do. We've really doubled down by creating a whole training department and really building out our onboarding and all of these things that are just so cool to see, that you may or may not see in our industry, that hopefully, again, we can kind of be that, hey, we tried it, here's where it went not so great, here's where it went really good, and here's what we've learned. So take it, and hopefully it helps your guys' business as well.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure it was in this same episode, but if it wasn't in this one, it was in one of the other interviews that, as I was going through this, listening to them, finding clips, there was one clip that almost made it in, but it was a little short, so I went for something with a little bit more meat to it. And I'm going to botch the quote, but it still stands out to me, and it's, I know something you've said very similar. They said that, I look at it as that we are in the business of improving people's lives. It just so happens that we also fix heating and plumbing. And just that kind of concept of the focus is on the person, not on the device, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just to comment on that, I mean, it's so true, right? I mean, I feel like the businesses that struggle in our industry that I've seen are so focused on what it is that they do and not why they do it. And, that focus on our people has really led us to just just investing all in them. Like, you know what? Like, yes, how can I make our people's lives better? Not to the detriment of our external customer, but hopefully to enhance the experience of our external customer, because it all falls in line. If I don't focus on the people and just the external customer, well, it's going to be really hard to bridge that gap between me. I don't run all the service calls. We're running probably close to 300 calls a day. Like, not one person can do that. It takes a team. So, if we don't focus on that team, how are they going to take care of those people? Why would they want to take care of those people? And so I just think that that's critically important, is to understand, kind of the why behind what you're doing, not focus so much on the actual like nuts and bolts of what it is that you're doing.
Absolutely. So this next clip is probably one of my favorites, and it's episode 54. I just titled it Leadership Lessons from Dad. This one was probably the hardest to pick a clip from. I had I think 7 little segments marked, but I ended up picking this one, and I'll just go ahead and play it so that everyone can hear it, and then we will talk about why.
That evening we get back, and then the next morning we meet, and it's me, my brother, and my dad sitting in his office. And keep in mind, at this point, I'm 28 and he's 25. And the company at that point, in 15, we had a really big year because we did a bunch of new construction. I've told the story before. Tyler and I personally did some new construction because a job fell through. We had way too much going on. Wasn't pretty. It turned out all right. We got it all done miraculously. But at the end of the day, we were 28 and 25. And this guy has built this company for almost 20 years now and put all the sweat and tears and everything into it. And we're having a conversation where, when it comes to belief, he says, well, I think we ought to do this if you guys want to grow the company. And if we don't, then, we don't, but you guys are going to take it where you want to take it. And so literally in his office that day with a 28 and 25-year-old, literally essentially turned over kind of the keys to the company. And as I think back on my 28-year-old self and my brother's 25-year-old self, I wonder what kind of he was thinking there. I oftentimes think about that. If I'm put in that position, what is that conversation going to look like? I don't know yet. But the fact that he believed in us enough to empower us, to let us do that, is probably one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. And I've ran into people that have believed in me or, said, hey, you can do it, but never quite like that. And to me, that is something where, as I spoke about earlier, feedback and us kind of learning and adapting our relationship as we've grown. It's one of those things where anytime that I'm moving forward or we're trying something different, I always have that in the back of my mind, is that he believes in me. And I think as leaders, our teams have to know that we believe in them. They've got to understand that it's okay to make a mistake. I mean, we're not going to, so long as no one gets hurt, we're good. It may not be the right thing to do, but it's okay. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have different opinions. We're all going to go different ways. But it's the fact that you believe in someone enough to say, well, hey, let's give it a shot.
So with this one, I feel like you can really hear the weight that moment had for you, even still in that clip of that conversation. So how has your dad's ongoing support, do you feel, helped shape your leadership?
Yeah, even listening to that now is, there's probably not a day that goes by that I don't think about that. Because without that trust, I've met tons of people in companies where that trust and belief wasn't there, and it's not a great situation. And so to me, anytime that we are working on a program that's going to empower people or grow people or show the belief in what they have, or anytime I can say, hey, whatever you think, I'm extremely grateful to him, because I do feel that because he did that, I'm allowed to do that on a bigger scale. And I'm allowed to trust people and believe in people. And there is no more powerful thing that I think you can do for somebody than saying that you believe in what they're doing. Because so many people are walking around here all the time, not around here, but just in the world, unsure of what they're supposed to do or unsure of their talent because no one's ever told them that they're good at anything or no one's ever believed in them or whatever it is. And to me, that is our greatest responsibility as leaders. It's to inspire the best in others. And a lot of that inspiration stems from actually believing in them and vocalizing that to them. Like, hey, Jared, I believe that you know what you're doing. So like, yeah, am I going to check over this episode before we? No, I'm not, because I know that you have the best interest of what this looks like at heart. So you're going to do a great job with it. So you don't need me looking over your shoulder telling you what to do. That would only make that more awful of an experience. So, I just think it's some of those things of people often ask, we have, I think, 325 people. And the biggest thing that people will always say is like, well, how do you manage all those people? It's like, you manage them, you lead them by believing in them. And it's that belief that ties them to you and allows you both to see what the best outcome is for the company.
Alrighty, so we are here at our last clip, and it's from episode 57 called Keys to Grow Consistently. So obviously, once you have started your growth journey, you got to keep going. Once you've started your leadership journey, you got to keep going. You're going to be a leader every day of your life. And so how do you kind of keep that going? How do you continue to improve? And so let's take a listen to this clip.
I learned a few years ago that it's great to read books, it's great to go to seminars, it's great to learn things, but until you share that, you're really not making much of an impact at all. We can ourselves grow as much as we want, but until we share that, until we impact the life of someone else, who are we truly leading? Our job as leaders, as we have talked many of times, is to inspire. It's not to manage, it's not to tell people what to do, it's to inspire. It's to inspire people to want to be better than they are today, to achieve something that they may have not thought possible.
All right, so you actually mentioned earlier in the episode that this is kind of why there even is a podcast, this concept that you're talking about. So when did this idea switch from leadership is something that you learn about, you mentioned reading about it, to leadership is, well, it needs to be shared?
Yeah, absolutely. We've all probably found ourselves reading books and getting through the end of it and putting it back on the shelf and never doing anything with it. And I'm as guilty as anybody when it comes to that. And so what I learned was, it's my duty to share this information that I'm learning. Someone else may be reluctant to pick up that book, but maybe they'll want to come listen, or maybe they'll listen on their drive to work, or maybe it is. And so what I challenge people to do is to not only put that out there, but also take responsibility for making people listen. And that's not like making people listen, that sounds kind of negative, but it's like we just talked about with the reviews. Like, we're going to get people to review this thing because we know that with more reviews, maybe more people will listen. And it's not about like getting to a listenership number. We're not making any money with this thing, or there's no like benefit. Like me putting out leadership content, that's probably in a very weird interconnected way, maybe we'll sell another furnace or get another customer, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to put information out there that we are learning that hopefully someone grasps onto and becomes better. And I think that's where the inspiration piece goes, is when you take responsibility for inspiring people, it's very hard to blame others. If you're in charge of the inspiring and the people that you're talking to aren't inspired, well, who's responsible for that? Well, that would be you as the leader. And so if we all take a more active role in being that inspirer, and an inspiring person doesn't need to be the person that likes to stand up and talk in front of everybody and all of that stuff. You can inspire people every day through your actions. There's people around here that inspire me every day because of how, just generous they are with their time and their effort and their willingness to make this place better and take care of customers and so on and so forth. All of that stuff is inspiring. So as we finish up, and I'm sure that there were tons of clips, and I really appreciate you putting these together. I think this is a very good one to end on as we all roll into 2022, is that we all have the choice to be inspiring today or uninspiring or neutral. We could just roll throughout the day. But what I will tell you is that if more of us can be inspiring, we're going to live in a lot better place. Because when people are inspiring others, really, really cool things happen. And I've been fortunate enough for the last 10 years to work at a very inspiring place, because there are a lot of people running around here inspiring others. And if you're looking to lead your organization, if you're looking to build your career, whatever it is, if you set out every day to inspire somebody, I can guarantee you, you will always be growing.
Awesome. Well, that's it. We have done it. We've gotten through all the clips. Episode 100. Triple digits.
It's here. We're triple digits. Now it's the push to 200.
Absolutely.
So I think we'll accomplish 200 a lot faster. And one of the reasons is, like we talked about earlier, we've kind of set a goal, and we're going to go after it. So, what do our actions need to look like in order to get there? And, I was just thinking about that the other day, and I think it's going to be really good. We're going to put out a lot of really good content over the next 100. And for all of you that are listening, thank you. Thank you for taking that little bit of time today. Not so much to listen to Jared and I talk, but more so just to be on your own growth journey. That's pretty special that we're getting to play a small part in that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for letting us be a part of it and for sharing in our growth journey, as it were.
Absolutely. Appreciate all the listeners, and we look forward to making the next 100.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I would greatly appreciate if you would rate the show or share it with someone who might enjoy it. As the name suggests, we are always looking to grow, so let me know in the comments what you thought and if there is anything you would like to hear on future episodes. Come back again soon, and always keep growing out there.